As you both know, the budget for the Department of Agriculture has been cut substantially over the last few years, and I'd like to get your thoughts a little bit on where you see that budget going. Department of Agriculture is very important to Kentucky Farm Bureau, and the things that it do not only touch agriculture, but it also touches all consumers across the state. So most people don't know that the Department of Agriculture does all the consumer protection, the weights and measures, safety, and all of those things. So what the Department of Agriculture does in Kentucky and the Commonwealth is very important to us. So I'd like to know, I'm going to give you a couple of our policy statements and then ask you a couple of questions here if we would. Our policy states that we support a well-administered and adequately financed Kentucky Department of Agriculture. Of course, we all know that. We would recommend an increase in the budget's baseline to bring the marketing and promotion budget in line with other states. And now I'd like to ask you both these two questions, please. Please describe for us your vision over the next 4 years for the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, how this vision will increase net farm income, and how you plan to work with members of the General Assembly to ensure that Kentucky Department of Agriculture is adequately funded to carry out this vision. And the second question is, as Commissioner, how will you work with Kentucky Farm Bureau to ensure agriculture in Kentucky remains a viable industry?
All righty, thank you. Ms.
Okay.
Dawson-Spann will be first.
Well, thank you, Mr. Melton, for that question. And my budget will reflect my priorities. The first thing we must do is to keep the budget intact for the regulatory side of the department. We must have a budget to keep our citizens safe and to see that they get their full measure. This means we try to get them adequate salaries, very important, have continuous training, see that their vehicles are serviced and safe, and that we serve all of the citizens of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. The second part of my budget will reflect the priorities that I have set forth as I have traveled along this campaign since June of last year. Number one being our focus on exports, as laid out in my Export Kentucky Agriculture Plan for the future of Kentucky agriculture. Number two will be our commitment to put regional offices in both Western and Eastern Kentucky, and we will do that within existing budget. Take Frankfurt to the people. Number three, to grow the Kentucky Proud program, to address our focus on the local food movement and how to get our farmers growing sufficient quantities of the demanded foods, and then how to get these items to the markets without adding to the cost, logistics. And number four, safety, and especially farm safety. Number five, our commitment to the animal shelters here across Kentucky. And number six, our commitment to education, which is all throughout my platform, especially to our Kentucky farm families, making distance learning modules available to our part-time farmers so they can take these distance learning modules and help them qualify for better paying off-farm jobs to help their families. I have an excellent relationship with Rita Smart, chair of the House Subcommittee on General Budget, and with most of our legislature. I would expect that I can make a very good proposal that will pass the legislature. And most importantly, I look forward to a relationship with all of you here at Kentucky Farm Bureau as we all work together to grow Kentucky agriculture, which will then grow our entire Kentucky economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quarles.
Thank you for the question. Kentucky Department of Agriculture is an executive agency, and with that, we are oftentimes constrained or have opportunities with the resources we have. Kentucky Department of Agriculture currently runs on about a $33 million annual budget. We have a staff that fluctuates around 240 employees, and so my major first on day one after the election is start working on the budget immediately. We don't need to wait until January. In fact, executive agencies are required to submit projected budgets months in advance so that the new governor, whoever he is, can include it in his recommendation as well. So we'll hit the ground running, developing a budget that protects the operational budget so we can continue to have the talent and resources to effectively and efficiently administer the various responsibilities that the Department of Agriculture has, many of which are regulatory. And it is true, we affect Kentuckians more than just 3 times a day, but in a variety of capacities, ranging from rates and measures to calibrating checkout machines at grocery stores to even amusement rides. So it's important that we protect the personnel that we have already. I have a good working relationship with the Kentucky General Assembly. I just started my third term. I've gone through the budget process before. I know what it's like. Actually worked with Commissioner Comer in his very first budget session to make sure that we protected his budget. And it gets very complicated very quick. In Kentucky, if you've been keeping up with the news, we have a lot of major issues, financial issues affecting our state. And so as Kentucky's demand for different programs and obligations continues to grow, we have to work within existing means. Commissioner Comer has proven that you can do more with less. That's the sort of leadership style I'll bring to the department. And as the General Assembly reconvenes in January, they only have about $10 billion to work with each year. And so they're going to be looking for places to cut. We need to make sure that we protect the operational budget. And I have a firm, good working relationship with every member of the General Assembly. And that's something that has taken years to develop. And that's one thing I've learned in politics. It's not just about your ideas, it's about developing relationships. I have a good working relationship both in the House and Senate side, and I think we'll be successful in the budget situation. For your second part, how should we continue to work with the Kentucky Farm Bureau? I'll always have an open door policy. I want your input. I want your leadership. I want the vision that you all have taken a lot of time putting in, especially with emerging issues such as the Water Quality Working Group. So I want to continue to work with you, and that's sort of open door policy that I'll bring to the Department of Agriculture.